So it is about 9:45 in the morning, and as usual I am in the library. I came here about 50 minutes before, but the entire two floors were being cleaned, vacuum cleaned, and the entire place was noisy, so I wasn't able to record anything for all this while. Anyway, the big giant Apple has just concluded their yearly event of iPads and iPhones just in the end of last week, and the entire world has been talking about it, which just means one thing for us medical students. Now there are more options to confuse us when we are considering buying an iPad for our medical school. So in this video I'm going to be giving you out some of my tips to help you choose an iPad that is best suited for you during your time in medical school. Also in this video we are going to be discussing some of the accessories that you need to buy along with your iPads, which you don't need to buy along with your iPads, which you need to wait and see for. Also stay tuned until the end of the video because I'm going to be giving you tips on how to buy these iPads cheaper. So if you're new to this channel, I'm Mohit Perumal and I'm a final year medical student here in the Far Eastern Federal University, and let's get started with the video. So let's keep this a bit simple. If you are even considering buying an iPad Pro, then I would say this video isn't for you, because firstly that machine is a real powerhouse, and apart from the huge price point that it comes out in, it is meant for people who are actually doing professional works like rendering CAD models, editing professional videos, or even professional photos, things like that. I would not consider that for a medical student. So for the rest of us, I'm going to be giving you out 3 recommendations: the iPad mini, the iPad Air 2020, and the latest 9th gen iPad. Straight out of the bag, if you're considering a minimalist setup for your time in the university, like just considering having an iPad and a phone for the entire 6 years you're going to be in the medical school, and you're not going to be doing any kind of professional works which involve softwares like Premiere Pro, Final Cut Pro, etc., then I would suggest you to consider the iPad Air and the iPad mini. Both of these machines are highly capable when it comes to replacing your laptop for basic tasks like web browsing, editing documents, watching movies, etc. Actually, they might be even considered higher in quality compared to the laptops that come in this price range, considering the quality of the screen, which is great among these two iPads, the iPad Air and the iPad mini. And even for some light photo editing, most of these laptops don't come with the highly color accurate screen which these two iPads have. The main advantage that the iPad Air and the iPad mini have over the 9th generation iPad is the Type-C port, which can help you hook up this machine to a wide range of accessories like hard disks, SSDs, etc. Unlike the Lightning port that comes along with the iPad 9th gen, the accessories and dongles for any Type-C port is going to be, 1, widely available, and number 2, a lot more cheaper. Trust me on this. I have a 2nd generation iPad Air, and it actually drives me mad how much these accessories actually cost. So let's talk about the iPad Air and iPad mini. Straight out, if you want a bigger screen, then the iPad Air is the obvious choice, because the iPad mini has a much smaller screen compared to the iPad Air, about 2.5 inches or so, and trust me, the iPad mini is going to be small when you consider the iPad Air. But if you're okay with the smaller form factor, then these are the differences between the iPad Air and the iPad mini. First, the price difference. The iPad mini costs around 10,000 rubles or 10,000 rupees cheaper than the iPad Air. So if you want a cheaper version, go for the iPad mini. If you are okay with spending a bit more money for the bigger screen, then go for the iPad Air, of course. The next difference is the smart connector that comes with the iPad Air. There are a couple of strips under the iPad Air which lets you connect the Apple Smart Keyboard to the iPad Air, which is not present in the iPad mini due to its size. But I don't think it is going to be much of a difference, because you can still connect any kind of Bluetooth keyboard and mouse you want with the iPad Air as well as the iPad mini. And personally, I don't think the Apple Smart Connector keyboard is worth the price that it asks for. For that price, you can actually buy better tactile keyboards that will actually last you longer, and it will also be much more comfortable to type on. The next difference is going to be the chipset. Because the iPad mini just came out, it is going to be having the better chip compared to the iPad Air. The iPad mini has the A15 chip compared to the A14 on the iPad Air, but I don't think it is going to be translating that much in real world usage when you compare it to just a generation old iPad Air. Of course, the iPad mini is going to have 5G capabilities if you buy the cellular variant, but I don't think most of us who are considering budget iPads are going to go for the cellular variant. I would much rather buy a higher storage variant for the price that the cellular variant comes in. So the next difference is actually going to be pretty small. The iPad mini and the iPad 9 gen with this generation of updates got another camera feature called as center stage, where the camera actually sets the frame for you and the composition for you you when you are in a video call. So at this point of time, the iPad mini seems like a much better option compared to the iPad Air when you consider the features and the chipset that it comes in, and also the price difference that the iPad Air and the iPad mini have between them. So if you're okay with the smaller form factor, then the iPad mini is actually going to be a much better choice compared to the iPad Air. So now let's talk about the budgetary option that most of us would consider, the 9th generation iPad that recently came out. So I'm going to be telling you some of the pros and cons that are associated with this iPad, and I'm going to be letting you decide if you want to pick up this over the iPad mini and the iPad Air. So let's start with the cons. Number 1, boring design. We have been seeing this design for ages from the start of the iPad. There have been 9 generations of this iPad and the design hasn't changed much. For example, this is an iPad which I had gotten about 5 years before, and it still has the same form factor as the iPad which has come out now. The second reason is going to be the most important reason in my books, the lightning connector that comes with the iPad. Honestly, I could go on a rant for about 2 to 3 hours just with this regard, because I consider this lightning port to be utter nonsense. You literally can't do anything with this lightning port without spending money. Even the two basic things that a port needs to do, like charge and data transfer, are pretty slow in these iPads and even in iPhones, because the lightning ports only transfer data in about 2.0 speeds. And don't even let me start about the dongle situation. Just a lightning to USB dongle costs about 4,000 rubles or 4,000 INR in Apple's website, and you actually can't find third-party connectors for these lightning ports because it is definitely going to be costly and nobody is going to be buying it, and the audience is actually pretty small for these kinds of investments. So enough of talking about the lightning port. I have told you how bad it is. Just consider that as the primary reason you would actually trash this iPad and choose the rest of the two. The next reason is going to be a slower chipset. This iPad actually comes with the A13 chipset, which is actually 3 years old at this point of time. It will show its age with time, but I'm pretty sure it will last you an entire medical school, so that's fine by me. So let's get to the advantages or the pros of buying the 9th generation iPad. The first one is the price at which the iPad comes in. It comes in around 30,000 rubles or 30,000 rupees for the 64GB variant. Previously it used to be just 32. Now Apple has graciously given us 64 gigs. Of course you can't add an external storage device like an SD card, etc. But I think for this price what the iPad offers is actually pretty good value for the money. And most of us won't be using our iPads for any kind of professional works, and we would be much rather be web surfing, reading, watching movies, etc., for which this iPad is much more capable. And the next advantage of this iPad is the Apple Pencil support. Even though the support for the Apple Pencil is going to be the first generation one, the option is still available if you want to consider other options like taking notes or taking up hobbies like drawing in your iPad, doing some illustrative works, etc. So those are the pros and cons when it comes to the 9th generation iPad. And now I'm going to be telling you some of the basic things to consider when you're getting an iPad. Number 1 is going to be storage. I would tell you all to invest in storage rather than high performance and features of other iPads, because a lot of our books are much more space consuming than you might actually imagine them to be. For example, one of my surgical atlases is about 600 MB, and before you know it you're going to be running out of space. So previously I would tell you to consider the 128GB variant of the iPads, but now that Apple has just made it simple into 64 gigs and 256 gigs, I would actually tell you to consider the 256 gig variant if your budget allows for it. Also, if you're still confused between buying the iPad mini and the iPad Air because of the display differences, then I would actually tell you to consider this. The iPad mini is actually 10,000 rupees or 10,000 rubles cheaper than the iPad Air. So if and when you're getting this iPad, you can actually invest in a bigger and better display for your home setup or your room setup, and you can actually take this iPad along when you are going around the university, and when you come back into the room, plug the iPad in because it has a Type-C port, plug the iPad in into a bigger display and watch your movies, etc. with that. That might be an option to consider, because the 10,000 rubles you are actually saving by not going into the iPad Air will actually help you find a better display. And just for the tips like that, consider subscribing. Now let's talk about accessories. The first thing is going to be considering the Apple Pencil. My advice when you buy an iPad is to wait. First get the iPad, try it out for a month, see what are all your use cases are, figure out where you fit in, and then see if you want to buy the Apple Pencil. Because a lot of my friends who have gotten their Apple Pencil along with their iPad purchase actually have them lying around without any use cases for it. You might be actually intrigued by videos online, seeing students actually taking notes with their iPads, and you might actually consider buying the Apple Pencil just for that. But the reality is most of these people also have a laptop in hand and carry two devices along with them, one for having a book on screen and the other one for taking notes. And trust me when I say this, if you're considering multitasking, having having your book in one screen while having the note-taking session in the other, I would actually tell you to consider it once more, because the iPads come in around 10 inches. Having two screens with multiple information is going to be pretty difficult. That gets us to the second point. If you're considering having your iPad as the primary source or the only device that you're going to be utilizing, consider a Bluetooth keyboard and a mouse. All the iPads now have mouse control in them, and they already had Bluetooth keyboard supports in them for a while now. So if you're going to be editing a lot of documents, and trust me, in medical school you're going to be, if you're going to be writing lots of essays, things like that, consider getting a good quality Bluetooth keyboard that is actually comfortable to type on and is actually pretty cheaper compared to the Apple accessory which I had said before. The next thing is about student discounts. A lot of you people, if you are considering buying an iPad now, that is between the seasons of July to November, Apple websites and Apple retailers usually run student discounts for iPads and MacBooks. For example, Apple's online website in India as well as in Russia allows you to buy these devices in student discounts, which is about 4,000 to 5,000 rubles cheaper than if you buy it in a normal retail price. So yeah, those are all my recommendations when it comes to purchasing an iPad for your medical school. Leave likes down below if you like the video. Comment down any suggestions for future videos and what you think about iPads in general. And I will see you guys in the next video pretty soon. Take care. Bye bye.